Hi, this is Chet Gladkowski for Second Chance with Saving Grace, and welcome to our weekly Bible study. We're starting a new little series this week about hurry up. Does this picture look like your schedule? Does this look like your calendar? Do you feel like this is what's happening to your life? All these things are going on, all these demands. Do you feel like maybe you're alone in that? Well, I don't think so. There was a recent study that was performed, and the question was asked over the past 3 years, the number of decisions that you had to make in a typical day has increased, decreased, or stayed the same. And as you can tell, over 3/4 of the percentage of everybody in North America feel like they're getting hammered. More and more decisions, more and more things are being asked of us on a daily basis. And so we're getting pulled in those directions, but we have to make decisions when those things come after us. When those things are come into our schedules, when people ask more things of us, make more decisions, how much time are we taking for those? And the next question was asked about the amount of time given for each decision. Has it increased, decreased, or stayed the same? Very few people, as you can see from this chart, think that it's stayed the same. Some people think that it's a little bit more, but there's an awful lot of us that say, man alive, there's just no more time. My week's not getting empty, it's getting fuller. I mean, think back to when I was a kid and I used to watch the Jetsons on television. It was a great cartoon series, and George and Jane Jetson just sat around all day because computers and robots did everything for them, and their lives were filled with all of this empty time. But that's certainly not like you and me, is it? And as all of these things come crashing into our lives, there's more demand on you and your schedule. The question is, what will be the priority of our lives? God, in His kindness, has made it very clear that relationships, not time, not schedules, are more important. And we're going to see a picture of this as portrayed in the life of Moses as he is reunited with his father-in-law, Jethro. Let's read this passage together from Exodus 18. Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard all that God had done for Moses and for his people Israel, how the Lord had brought him out of Egypt. So we have the introduction of Jethro. Again, he had been much earlier on in the passage in Exodus, after Moses had been forced out at virtually at gunpoint. He was a fugitive leaving Egypt, and he worked he worked for Jethro and eventually married his daughter. So that makes Jethro his father-in-law. Boy, when my father-in-law calls, it gets my attention right away. I don't know about you, whether you have a great relationship with your father-in-law like I do, or maybe a not so great relationship with your father-in-law, as a friend of mine recently told me about the brokenness in the relationship with his father-in-law. So that's the first thing. Next, Jethro was also the priest of Midian. As you can see from this artwork from Midian, a priest was someone who offered sacrifice. A priest is someone who stood between people and God and was an umpire, brought the relationship back together. There was no temple, there was no synagogue, there was no tent of meeting, there was no church. So the role of priest was very important. And Jethro had heard certain things were told about Moses. Listen to these three things that the father-in-law heard about the son-in-law. First, all that God had done for Moses. Second, what God had done for his people. And then lastly, how God saved them from Egypt. Jethro heard God did this, God did that, God met with them, God spoke, God acted. Jethro heard all that God was about and how that was connected with Moses. And so he wants to reunite and reconnect with his son-in-law, and the passage continues. He, Jethro, sent word to Moses, I, your father-in-law, Jethro, am coming to you with your wife and her 2 sons. Moses went out to meet his father-in-law. He bowed down and kissed him. Each asked the other about their other welfare, and then they went into the tent. Well, here Jethro hears all this stuff about Moses, how God had worked, and Jethro says, I want to reach out. I want to connect with you again. I want to reconnect with you because we used to work together. We spent a lot of time together. You also then married my daughter, and you are also the father of my grandkids. Jethro made a decision to meet him again because of his past dealings as employer, son-in-law, and the father of the grandkids. Now, of all of those things, from the people I hear, having the grandkid connection is the key. We don't have any grandkids yet, but I listen to grandfathers talk about their grandkids, and boy, there is a deep, deep connection there. And Jethro wants to be reunited and reconnected with Moses. So Moses went out to meet Jethro, and look what he did. He bowed down, he kissed him, asked about his welfare, and then they went together into the tent. See that Moses didn't stay in his tent when Jethro arrived. Moses knew that relationships are the key, that meeting his father-in-law was important. So he got up off his butt, got out of his easy chair, stopped surfing the internet, and let's take a look at these rules of reunion that Moses went through with Jethro, because it's relationships and it's all about those important connections. First of all, he went out. He went out to Jethro. He got out of his tent. He went outside. He initiated that contact. Yes, Jethro had left his house and had traveled, but Moses got up and reached out to him firstly. Next, he bowed down. He showed respect. He showed favor towards his father-in-law. This is the custom of the day, and we would do something while we may not bow down, but there is a way to show respect to people that we want to reconnect with. Thirdly is that he greeted him. I'm sure this was more than a handshake. Hadn't seen him in many days, years, in fact. So he greeted him. He wanted him to know that he was welcomed. Next, he asked. They both asked each other about how things were going. For my money, this is the most important part. Asking questions. Because when you ask questions, first of all, you're not telling everybody how great you are and how great things are going in your life. Have you met people like that? I get tired of them really quickly when they just tell me, oh, I've been meeting with this person and things are so good. Oh, my kids are perfect. Oh, my grandchildren, they're so smart and beautiful. No, they ask questions. What an important part of reuniting in their relationships. And finally, Moses said, come into my house. So Jethro went into the house. Moses threw open the welcome mat, brought him in, and I'm sure they sat down and had a great meal. This is how reunions take place. And I think about not only how this is a pattern for us to deal with one another, but I think about how God went through these exact same steps. He left the throne of heaven. Things were broken. He took the initiative. He went out. And then he came in a humble servant through Jesus. And he served other people. Jesus said, I came to serve, not to be served. He then greets us. He opens his nail-pierced hands and opens his life to us to reunite us with the Father, to bring us in. He greets us. He asks us to come to him and welcomes us in. So our reaction is to listen, to be overwhelmed by this great news, but we must respond. We can't just sit there and think, well, isn't that nice? No, we've got to get up and we have to go into the tent that God has prepared, the house that he is preparing for us in a life that is in service to others, both now and throughout all eternity. Because if God could humble himself for you and for me, then we must humble ourselves. When God greets you and me, then we must greet others. This has been Chet Gladkowski for Second Chance with Saving Grace. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. May God bless and bye-bye.